Laundry Day Blues. Leo sighed, the sound lost in the clatter of his overflowing laundry basket against the stairwell's metal railing. Laundry Day. It always felt like a descent into the underworld of the building, a damp, echoing space filled with the ghosts of forgotten socks and the hum of disgruntled appliances. He felt acutely aware of his age today, a mere 20 years etched onto his face, and the thought of encountering any of the building's more seasoned residents filled him with a particular dread. He just wanted to get his clothes clean and escape unnoticed. The basement laundry room reeked of stale detergent and something vaguely mildewy. He navigated the rows of machines, each one rumbling with a different pitch of discontent. As he approached the back corner, a cacophony of frantic giggling and muffled shouts erupted from the largest, industrial-sized washing machine. Curiosity, and perhaps a morbid fascination, propelled him forward. He cautiously rounded the corner, his eyes widening at the sight before him. Mrs. Gable, his mother's perpetually gossiping friend with her signature bright blonde bob, was contorted inside the washing machine drum. Her floral dress was hiked up around her thighs, revealing a pair of surprisingly sturdy support hose. Next to her, equally tangled in the metal cage, was Fiona, her fiery red hair a stark contrast against the cold steel. Her usually sharp eyes were wide with a mixture of panic and amusement. Leo! Thank heavens! Mrs. Gable exclaimed, her voice muffled by the metal. Get us out of here, dear. We're stuck. Fiona, ever the pragmatist, shot Mrs. Gable a look that could curdle milk. Stuck is an understatement, Carol. We're practically welded in. She caught Leo's eye, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. Don't just stand there gawking, Maxwell. Any ideas? Leo swallowed hard. This was unexpected. What happened? He stammered, his gaze flicking between the two women. It's a long story involving a lost earring, a dare, and a truly appalling lack of judgment, Fiona said dryly. Suffice it to say, the machine decided to lock us in. Mrs. Gable began to giggle again, a high-pitched, slightly hysterical sound. It seemed like such a good idea at the time. Leo assessed the situation. The washing machine door was firmly locked, the electronic display flashing a cryptic error message. He tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The air inside the drum was thick and smelled faintly of lavender and panic. Okay, Leo said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Don't panic. I'll figure something out. He rummaged in his backpack, pulling out his phone. I can call the building manager, Mr. Henderson. He'll have a key or something. No, wait. Fiona said quickly. Mr. Henderson will have a field day with this. Imagine the gossip. Besides, he'll probably just stand there scratching his head. Mrs. Gable nodded vigorously. Absolutely not. Think of my reputation. Leo hesitated. He really didn't want to get involved. But the thought of leaving them trapped in the washing machine, to the mercy of Mr. Henderson's ineptitude and the building's gossip mill. All right, he said, taking a deep breath. No building manager. Let me see if I can find the manual. He began searching the laundry room, pulling open drawers and rummaging through dusty shelves. He eventually unearthed a tattered, grease-stained manual for the washing machine. He flipped through the pages, his brow furrowed in concentration. Anything? Fiona asked, her voice laced with a hint of impatience. Leo scanned the diagram, his finger tracing the complex mechanism of the door lock. Maybe, there's a manual override. If I can reach it, he pointed to a small panel on the back of the machine. But I need something to pry it open. He glanced around the room, his eyes landing on a rusty metal bar leaning against the wall. That might work. He grabbed the bar, feeling its weight in his hand. This was going to be interesting. Trapped. Leo stopped dead. He blinked, rubbed his eyes with the heels of his hands, and blinked again. It couldn't be. Trapped inside the gleaming, industrial-sized washing machine, like some bizarre circus act gone wrong, were Mrs. Gable, his mom's friend, and, impossibly, Fiona. The glass door was fogged with condensation, but he could make out their faces, pressed against the inside. Mrs. Gable's usually immaculate blonde bob was plastered to her forehead, and her normally bright blue eyes were wide with a mixture of panic and amusement. Fiona, beside her, looked less panicked, more resigned, a wry smile playing on her lips. He stammered, "Mrs. Gable." "Fiona?" "What, how?" Mrs. Gable's muffled voice, distorted by the glass and the washing machine's humming, somehow carried. "Leo, darling. Thank heavens. Get us out of here." Leo, despite the shock, felt a surge of adrenaline. Forget awkwardness, forget feeling like a kid, two people needed help. He fumbled with the door handle, pulling and twisting, but it wouldn't budge. A small digital display above the door flashed the word "locked." It stuck. "The door's locked," he yelled, his voice echoing in the otherwise empty laundromat. He frantically scanned the control panel, a confusing array of buttons and symbols. Mrs. Gable started to giggle, a high-pitched, slightly hysterical sound. "Oh, this is just too ridiculous," she gasped. Fiona's voice, though muffled, was calm. "There should be an emergency release somewhere, Leo. Look for a red button, maybe." He poked and prodded at the panel, his fingers slipping on the smooth surface. Time seemed to stretch. He pictured them running out of air, though rationally, he knew the machine wasn't airtight. Still, the image spurred him on. He finally spotted a small, recessed button, colored a faded orange, almost hidden beneath a detergent dispenser. He jammed his finger on it. "Nothing. Try holding it," Fiona instructed. He pressed and held. A low hum filled the air, followed by a click. He yanked on the handle. This time, it gave. The door swung open, releasing a rush of warm, humid air. Mrs. Gable tumbled out, landing in a heap on the floor, still laughing. Fiona, more composed, stepped out gracefully, brushing imaginary lint from her vibrant purple dress. "Well, that was an experience," Fiona said, her eyes twinkling. She caught Leo's gaze. "Thanks for the rescue, Leo. You were very resourceful." Mrs. Gable, still sitting on the floor, wiped tears from her eyes. "Resourceful? He was a hero. We'd probably still be in there, marinating in fabric softener, if it weren't for you, Leo." She reached up and squeezed his hand. "I owe you one, sweetie." Leo, suddenly acutely aware of his own flushed face, managed a weak smile. I just pushed a button." "What were you doing in there anyway?" The question felt absurd, even to him. Fiona exchanged a look with Mrs. Gable, a silent communication passing between them. Mrs. Gable started to giggle again. Fiona, shaking her head, finally answered, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Let's just say it involved a lost earring, a dare, and a surprising lack of spatial awareness. Coffee and conversation." "I owe you one, or maybe two," Fiona said, her smile genuine as they stood outside the laundromat. The neon sign buzzed overhead, casting a pink glow on her auburn hair. "How about coffee? As a thank you for, saving me from a sudsy demise." Leo's cheeks flushed. He hadn't expected this. "Coffee? Sure. I mean, if you're free." He cursed his awkwardness. "Perfect. There's a place called The Daily Grind just down the street. They make a decent latte." The aroma of roasted beans hung heavy in the air as they entered the coffee shop. Fiona led the way to a small table tucked in a corner, near a bookshelf overflowing with well-worn paperbacks. Leo felt a flicker of relief, he felt more comfortable surrounded by books. "So," Fiona began, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Tell me about yourself, Leo Maxwell, rescuer of damsels in washing machines." He hesitated, suddenly self-conscious about the age difference that hadn't seemed so pronounced amidst the chaos of the laundromat. Not much to tell, really. I'm studying literature at the university. I like to read, obviously. He gestured vaguely at the bookshelf. Fiona's eyes lit up. Literature. What are you reading right now? The conversation flowed easily from there. They debated the merits of classic versus contemporary novels, discussed their favorite poets, and even argued good-naturedly about the symbolism in a particularly obscure painting hanging on the coffee shop wall. Leo found himself talking more freely than he usually did, drawn in by Fiona's sharp wit and genuine interest. I've always wanted to try pottery, he confessed, after Fiona mentioned her love for sculpting. But I'm afraid I'd just make a mess. Fiona laughed, a warm, throaty sound that made his heart skip a beat. Nonsense. Everyone makes a mess when they start. The important thing is to create something, anything. He noticed the way the light caught the flecks of gold in her hazel eyes, the way her brow furrowed when she was deep in thought, the way her lips curved into a smile when he said something she found amusing. He was charmed. Utterly and completely. What about you? He asked, trying to steer the conversation back to her. What are your dreams? Fiona's smile faded slightly. Dreams. She echoed, her voice softer. I used to have grand plans. A gallery in Paris, a solo exhibition. Life has a way of changing things. She paused, then looked directly at him, her gaze intense. But I'm starting to think maybe it's not too late to dream again. The air crackled with unspoken possibilities. Leo felt a pull, a connection he hadn't anticipated, a sense that something significant was unfolding between them. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. He knew, with a certainty that surprised him, that he wanted to know more about this woman, about her past, her dreams, and the secrets hidden behind her guarded smile. He just hoped he was brave enough to try. Mrs. Gable's meddling. Mrs. Gable's back ached, a familiar twinge that had her wincing as she wrestled a particularly heavy bag of flour from the boot of her ancient Volvo. Blast, she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. As if on cue, Fiona emerged from her own car, a canvas tote slung over her shoulder, her red hair a fiery halo against the afternoon sun. Need a hand, Mrs. Gable? Fiona asked, her brow furrowing with concern. Mrs. Gable straightened, a mischievous glint in her eye, and exaggerated the strain in her voice. Oh, Fiona, dear, that would be a lifesaver. My old bones aren't what they used to be. Inside, with the groceries safely stowed, Mrs. Gable beamed. You're a dear, Fiona. I was just thinking, it's such a lovely day. We should all go to Oakhaven Park this weekend. A picnic, perhaps. Leo could bring his guitar. Fiona hesitated, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. That sounds nice, Mrs. Gable. But wouldn't Leo rather hang out with people his own age? Mrs. Gable waved a dismissive hand. Nonsense. He enjoys good company, regardless of age. Besides, Millie and Carol will be there, and they adore him. She neglected to mention that Millie and Carol spent most of their time fussing over their grandchildren and gossiping about the local flower arrangements. The outing materialized on Saturday, a patchwork quilt of blankets and mismatched picnic baskets scattered beneath the sprawling oak trees. Leo, looking endearingly awkward in a new button-down shirt, tuned his guitar, his cheeks flushed a rosy pink. Mrs. Gable, ever the orchestrator, subtly maneuvered the seating arrangement so that Leo and Fiona were side by side. Leo, dear, why don't you play something for us? Mrs. Gable chirped, nudging him gently with her elbow. Fiona was just admiring your musical talent the other day. Fiona's eyes widened slightly, a silent question in their depths. Had she? She couldn't recall specifically, but Mrs. Gable's comment made her feel suddenly self-conscious. As Leo strummed a folksy tune, his voice a surprisingly rich baritone, Mrs. Gable leaned closer to Fiona, her voice a conspiratorial whisper. Doesn't he have the loveliest voice? And such a kind heart. A rare find these days. She punctuated her statement with a knowing wink. Fiona chuckled, trying to deflect the implication. He certainly seems like a nice young man. But even as she said it, she couldn't help but notice the way the sunlight caught the golden highlights in his hair, the earnest concentration on his face as he played. There was a vulnerability there, a sincerity that resonated with her in a way she hadn't expected. Later, as they packed up, Mrs. Gable feigned a sudden limp. "Oh, my knee. It's acting up again. Leo, would you be a dear and help Fiona carry that basket to her car?" Leo, ever eager to please, practically leaped to his feet. "Of course, Mrs. Gable." He grabbed the basket, his hand brushing against Fiona's. A jolt of unexpected electricity coursed through her, and she quickly pulled away, a blush creeping up her neck. As Leo walked beside her, a comfortable silence settled between them. But Fiona knew, with a growing certainty, that Mrs. Gable's meddling was far from over. And perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't entirely opposed to it. Small adventures. The gallery air hummed with quiet reverence. Fiona tilted her head, studying a canvas slashed with vibrant blues and angry reds. "Rothko," she murmured, more to herself than Leo. "Feels like contained chaos." Leo, a few steps behind, adjusted his glasses. "I see sadness. Like a storm cloud holding back a downpour." He felt a familiar prickle of self-consciousness. He'd read an essay on Rothko last week, specifically to have something to talk about. Was he trying too hard? Fiona turned, a playful glint in her eye. "Sadness? You and your melancholy heart. I thought you were a bold statement kind of guy." He flushed. "I can be both." He gestured towards a nearby sculpture, a twisted metal figure. "Now that's a bold statement. Probably costs more than my car." They spent an hour drifting through the gallery, dissecting brushstrokes and trading opinions. Fiona's laughter echoed softly, a bright counterpoint to the hushed atmosphere. He loved the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she found something truly amusing. Later, the scent of lemongrass and chili hung heavy in the air of Bangkok bites. Fiona wrestled with a particularly stubborn spring roll. "This is amazing," she declared, wiping her mouth with a napkin. "Though I think my sinuses are staging a full-blown revolt." Leo grinned, his own face flushed from the spice. "Worth it, though, right? Best pad CEU I've had in ages." He watched her, enjoying the easy camaraderie. These small adventures, these shared moments, were building something real. "Definitely worth it," she agreed, taking another bite. "Although, I might need a gallon of ice cream to recover." "I know just the place," Leo said, already picturing the neon glow of Sweet Surrender ice cream parlor. As they walked, bathed in the warm glow of streetlights, Fiona looped her arm through his. "You know, Leo," she said casually, "you're surprisingly good company for a young whippersnapper." He chuckled, but the word stung a little. "Whippersnapper? Ouch. I prefer man of the future." "The future, huh? I guess that makes me, what? An antique?" She squeezed his arm, but he sensed a slight tension in her voice. "No. Not at all," he said quickly, too quickly. "Timeless. Like a classic novel." She laughed, but her eyes held a flicker of something he couldn't quite decipher. "Smooth, Maxwell. Very smooth. But seriously, don't you ever worry about what people think? Me being, you know." She trailed off, leaving the unspoken words hanging in the air. He shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant. "Not really. Why should I?" But inside, a seed of doubt had been planted. He did worry. He worried about the glances they sometimes received, the subtle shifts in conversation when they were introduced as friends. He worried that he was just a novelty, a temporary distraction for a woman who deserved so much more. He worried, suddenly, that he was in over his head. Whispers and doubts. The air in the arcade buzzed with the electric hum of machines and the shrieks of teenagers battling pixelated monsters. Leo, however, felt a different kind of static prickling his skin. He jabbed at the buttons of the Dance Dance Revolution machine, the rhythmic thumping a frantic counterpoint to the snickers coming from behind him. "Dude, you're actually seeing her." Mark's voice dripped with disbelief. "Like, really seeing her?" Leo missed a step, his avatar stumbling on screen. "Yeah, Mark. What's the big deal?" He tried to sound nonchalant, but the flush creeping up his neck betrayed him. "The big deal is she could be your mom," Ben chimed in, earning a chorus of guffaws. "Think of all the dating advice you could get. Or better yet, the dating advice she could give us about what not to do." Leo spun around, his face hardening. "Lay off, guys. It's not like that." The neon glow painted his features in harsh blues and pinks, accentuating the anger simmering beneath the surface. "Not like what?" "Not like she's practically ancient." Mark pressed, a smirk playing on his lips. "Come on, Leo. You're 20. She's, what? 40. More." Leo's hands clenched into fists. "It's none of your business, and it's got nothing to do with age. Fiona is amazing. She's smart, funny, and she treats me with respect, something I can't say about you two right now." "Respect? She's probably just looking for a toy boy," Ben said, earning a sharp elbow from Mark, who realized Leo was about to explode. "Shut up, Ben," Leo snarled. "You don't know her. You don't know anything about her." All right, chill, dude," Mark said, holding up his hands. "We're just messing with you. But seriously, think about it. What are your parents gonna say?" The thought pierced through Leo's anger like a shard of ice. His parents. He hadn't even considered that. "Just, drop it, okay?" He turned back to the game, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. The laughter died down, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. After a few more minutes of strained gameplay, Leo threw his hands up. "I'm out. I'm gonna go." He stormed out of the arcade, the taunts echoing in his ears. He needed to see Fiona, to hear her voice, to remind himself that what they had was real, despite the doubts gnawing at him. As he rounded the corner towards her apartment building, he heard voices. His friends. They hadn't dropped it. Seriously, a laundromat? That's where they met? Sounds like the start of a bad rom-com, Mark was saying, his voice laced with amusement. "I heard her laughing," Ben snickered. "Probably trying to get his attention. Desperate much?" Leo froze, his blood running cold. Then he saw her. Fiona was standing just inside the doorway of her building, her face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with hurt. She hadn't seen him yet. She was just listening. He watched as her hand tightened on the strap of her messenger bag, her knuckles white. The laughter of his friends, so casual, so cruel, hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. He wanted to run to her, to explain, to apologize. But he was rooted to the spot, paralyzed by shame and the sickening realization that he had let them hurt her. Distance. The chasm between them yawned, a silent discord that hummed in Leo's ears, a broken harmony where Fiona's laughter once soared. Their botanical gardens excursion dissolved into a curt digital message, reschedule. The breezy tone a stark contrast to the anxiety churning within him. Plans for pierside sketching evaporated in a similar cloud of evasion. Calls went unanswered, routed directly to a voicemail greeting that now felt like a cruel joke. He caught a glimpse of her, fleeting, across Elm Street, her crimson hair a vibrant signal in the drab cityscape. He instinctively raised a hand, but she vanished into the labyrinthine depths of a bookstore, swallowed by towering stacks. A bitter taste coated his tongue. Had he conjured their connection? The shared grins over tepid coffee, the effortless repartee sparked in the hum of the laundromat that evening, the comfortable silences that bloomed afterward. He mentally dissected their conversations, searching for the fatal flaw, the jarring note. Was he too forward? Too green? Had his very being driven her away? The normally welcome fragrance of Maria's lasagna, that evening, felt oppressive. He toyed with his meal, listlessly rearranging the ricotta. "Everything all right, Leo?" Maria inquired, concern etching lines on her forehead. "You seem far away." He sighed, a sound thick with disappointment. "It's Fiona." Maria's fork hovered over her plate. "The woman from the laundromat?" He offered a miserable nod. "I think I botched it." He recounted the cancelled dates, the unanswered calls, the overwhelming sense of avoidance. Maria listened intently, her brow furrowed. When he finished, she reached across the table, her hand covering his. "Sweetheart, sometimes people get spooked. Fiona's lived a full life, she's bound to have some baggage. Maybe the age difference is weighing on her, maybe it's something else entirely." He withdrew his hand, tracing invisible patterns on the tablecloth. "It's ridiculous, right? I knew it. I'm 20. He couldn't bring himself to speak the number. She's a person, Leo. Someone you bonded with. Don't let numbers or the opinions of others steal something genuine from you. You felt something, right? And I saw her respond that night at the laundromat. If it matters to you, you have to find out what's going on, instead of jumping to conclusions." Maria paused, her gaze softening. "But be prepared for it not to work out, honey. Not every spark ignites a lasting flame. The key is to stay true to yourself." He looked at his mom, her words a beacon in the turbulent waters of his feelings. Maybe it wasn't over. Perhaps it was simply complex. He pushed back his chair, the legs screeching against the linoleum. "I need to get some air." He craved the cool embrace of the night, a moment to gather his thoughts. Stepping outside, a flicker of resolve ignited within him. He wouldn't let fear, hers or his, dictate the narrative. He would discover the truth, even if it meant facing the very real sting of rejection. He just needed a strategy. A picnic of apologies. The coarse weave of the blanket prickled Leo's skin as he spread it on the knoll overlooking the river. Sunlight filtered through the weeping willow, scattering coins of light across their impromptu dining area. He'd been meticulous, Fiona's cherished artisanal cheese, rustic bread from the corner bakery, even that obscure sparkling cider she'd offhandedly mentioned months ago. And then there were the blooms. A riotous bouquet of sunflowers, their heavy heads inclined skyward, miming rapt attention. A full hour at the farmer's market had been spent choosing just the right ones. He glanced at his watch, 2:57. A mere heartbeat until Fiona's arrival. A nervous tremor vibrated deep within him. What if she didn't show? What if his painstakingly crafted apology sounded hollow? He'd even committed it to paper, a crumpled security blanket in his pocket. The crisp sound of tires on gravel heralded her presence. Leo straightened, his pulse a frantic drum solo. Fiona was radiant. A simple azure sundress mirrored the cloudless sky, and her fiery hair was haphazardly clipped back, wisps framing her face. He swallowed, hard. "Leo," she breathed, her tone a puzzling blend of surprise and something else altogether. "What's all this, then?" He swept his hand towards the setup, a sheepish grin tugging at his lips. I needed to say I'm sorry." He inhaled deeply, the sunflower's earthy fragrance grounding him. "For my friend's appalling behavior. And for my own. I was pathetic, Fiona. Insecure about the years between us, agonizing over opinions. It was ridiculous, and so unfair to you. You deserve infinitely more." He reached for the note, his fingers clumsy, but checked himself. He didn't require it. He locked eyes with her, his remorse pouring out. "I utterly messed up. I am truly sorry. Fiona stood immobile for a long moment, scrutinizing him, her face an enigma. The river chuckled nearby, the only sound cutting through the strained air. At last, she sighed, deflating slightly. I was wounded, Leo. Not simply by their cruelty, but by your reticence. It felt as if I was something to hide. She worried at a stray thread on her dress. Yet. I missed you terribly. Much more than I anticipated. It's difficult, you know. Being the older one. I have my own vulnerabilities. Her gaze met his, a flicker of fragility within. Perhaps this picnic is a promising start. A genuine, dazzling smile bloomed across her face. But you're doing the dishes. Leo beamed, a wave of relief washing over him. You've got yourself a deal. He indicated for her to be seated. As they settled onto the blanket, a comfortable quiet enveloped them, broken only by the whispered secrets of the willow tree. He reached for the sparkling cider, the cork's pop a cheerful punctuation mark. Perhaps, against all odds, he hadn't irreparably broken things. As they shared their meal, their conversation meandered, sidestepping apologies and insecurities, touching instead on art, favorite novels, the absurdities of the internet. The sun bestowed its warmth, and the sunflowers released their summery scent. It felt right. It felt like them again. Happily ever after, and a washing machine. The laundromat smelled faintly of lemon detergent and regret. Fiona sat beside Leo on the park bench outside, the late afternoon sun painting her fiery hair in even brighter hues. So, she said, breaking the silence, that was something. Leo ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. I still can't believe your mom's friend, Brenda, was in there with you. Fiona chuckled, a genuine, warm sound that eased some of the tension clinging to Leo. Brenda's always up for an adventure, though I suspect this wasn't quite what she had in mind. She paused, her expression turning serious. Look, Leo, about earlier. I was awful. I let my insecurities get the better of me. I wasn't exactly a shining example of courage myself, Leo admitted, wincing. Hiding behind the washing machine wasn't my finest moment. They both laughed, a shared moment of absurdity that finally cleared the air. What do we do now? Leo asked, his voice laced with vulnerability. Fiona reached out and took his hand, her touch sending a jolt of warmth through him. We ignore everyone else. We focus on what makes us happy. The next few weeks were a tightrope walk. Introducing Fiona to his family was interesting. His mother, after the initial shock, was cautiously supportive, mostly because she adored Fiona's artwork. His older brother, however, made a series of cougar jokes that earned him a swift punch to the arm. Fiona's experience was similar, her friends divided between enthusiastic support and thinly veiled concern. Even Brenda, despite her shared washing machine trauma, offered unsolicited advice on grooming habits for younger men. Through it all, Leo and Fiona clung to each other. They spent hours in Fiona's studio, Leo reading aloud while she painted, the scent of oil paints and turpentine a comforting backdrop to their quiet connection. They explored hidden cafes, debated obscure films, and discovered a shared love for antique bookstores. They built a world that was theirs, brick by brick, ignoring the whispers and raised eyebrows. Years later, sitting on the porch of their cozy cottage overlooking the sea, Leo watched Fiona tend to her rose garden. The sun had softened the lines around her eyes, but her spirit remained as vibrant as the day he'd found her wedged in a washing machine. Remember Brenda? He asked, a grin spreading across his face. Fiona looked up, her eyes sparkling with amusement. How could I forget? She still brings it up at book club. Apparently, she's become a local celebrity. Leo chuckled. I still can't believe that's how we met. Stuck in a washing machine. It's something they won't believe for generations to come. Fiona walked over and leaned against him, her hand finding his. It was a bit unconventional, I'll admit. But it brought me you. And that, Leo Maxwell, is my happily ever after, washing machine and all. He wrapped his arm around her and kissed her forehead, the salty air carrying the scent of roses and the faint, lingering memory of lemon detergent.